With all of the negative headlines dominating the news these days, it can be difficult to spot signs of progress. What makes you optimistic about the future? People here are talking about cancer cure here. Stanford medicine made the biggest breakthrough in history just last month. They cured 90 out of 90 infected mice with different kinds of cancers with just one shot of medicine. Oh man, I got cancer. Could not come to work today. Boss. PSHH, go get your poop and get in here. Solar energy desalination gene therapy. Using gene therapy to build a human that can drink salt water and use sunlight like a plant. Yes, I wait the day as well. Behold. Jim, that is just grass. You mean seaweed? Seawater would kill grass. All 7 of my honeybee colonies are currently surviving the winter. And today they're bringing in the first pollen of the year. Yay, go bees. People drastically underestimate how much we should be saying go bees. Duck. BGs. The good news is often quiet and subtle. The bad news is always loud. I tried to remember that. Our headlines are splashed with crime, yet for every criminal there are 10,000 honest, decent, kindly men. If it were not so, no child would live to grow up. Business could not go on from day to day. Decency is not news. It is buried in the obituaries, but is a force stronger than crime. This is really beautiful. What is it from? The possible return of the American chestnut tree. Fast-growing, rot-resistant, and, perhaps most important, it produces enough calories from the nuts to feed a population. The death of the American chestnut is also partially responsible for the severity with which the Great Depression struck Appalachia. Chestnuts were a primary food supply for backup reserves in the form of herds of pigs that were allowed free roam. The pigs could be sold or slaughtered to keep families afloat during hard times. The disappearance of the chestnuts killed the viability of the pig herds, causing the economic failsafe to collapse ecologically at the same time that the Great Depression made monetary reserves worthless. This sounds like a dissertation. Seriously, this is amazing. My students. They handle a complex, globally interconnected society in ways my generation undergraduate at university in the 1970s could not hold a candle to. Any color, any sexual orientation, any disability, any nationality. It is all good. So long as they are not an asshole. We may be approximating Dr. Martin Luther King's hope for a world where people are judged by the content of their character rather than the color of their skin. I see the same thing in my students. I teach preschool, and today a little boy whose parents are from Somalia, a little boy who was born in Kyrgyzstan, a little boy from Peru, and a little girl whose parents are from Mexico build a castle together. They don't care what color you are or where you're from. They just like building together. I mean, I have not heard much about ISIS recently. That has got to be a good sign. They no longer control anything meaningful anymore. They're just your garden variety terrorist group now. Why do we even have that garden? In the analogy, the garden is our lives. ISIS are the garden variety weeds. If we give up the garden to the weeds, then they have won. Advancements in medicine and gene therapy. The CRISPR technology has me very excited. Also, the James Webb Space Telescope is going to bring about many new discoveries. It feels like we have not had a huge discovery recently. Hopefully we get something big within a decade or so. I don't know, man. Evidence of the Higgs boson and the gravitational wave detection from LIGO were both pretty big news. Advancements in health studies and science for health has improved living conditions tenfold and continue to do so. So that makes me pretty optimistic. No one lives forever. No one. But with advances in modern science and my high-level income, it is not crazy to think I can live to be 245. Maybe 300. This is a quote from Talladega Nights. I am not being serious. They say the first human who will live to 150 has already been born. I believe I am that human. Space. So much is unknown right now. Excited to see what can come in the future. Watched Falcon Heavy launch the other week and was amazed for the first time in a long time. I literally screamed and cheered watching Falcon Heavy like I would at a football game. It was amazing to witness. understanding of history. We are at a certain point in time, during which we are well aware of what happened in the past. This is a newly available, highly useful feature of our generation. Hopefully it lasts censorship. That we're almost at the point where we get artificial organs. I could use a kidney. Ima get some laser eyes. Ima be a repoman. Zydra comes in a little glass vial. Mental illness awareness is growing rapidly, and people are more and more willing to assist those in need. Not only that, but people with mental illness have become less and less ashamed of said illnesses and actually seeking out help. Stigma goes both ways. God, I will never forget the day I called off at work because my anxiety was flaring up hard. My bosses took it seriously, sent me a nice email saying they understood it was serious and thanking me for how hard I was working. They have got my loyalty for life because they took it seriously. The moment I feel best about as a boss was the day I had a good employee with lots of promise stop his meds and fall off a cliff and showed up hours late, still drunk, and fell to the floor sobbing. His supervisor did great and just kept him calm, but he was all but restraining him from leaving. I get there and we just sat on the floor of that office for a couple hours. He told me he was ducked because he ducked up, like he always did, and now he burned his last good chance. I talked to him about his life and past for a bit and then told him about my therapy session from the day before. I told him that morning had officially never happened and that he could come back tomorrow or later if he needed time and get back to his job. We talked about suicide and having already decided not to. We talked about trying not to spiral down into a pit just because you ducked up. He left a little before lunch. I told his crew of techs who saw him that he had a bad day and that we should all remember our own bad days. They supported him beautifully and he has been kicking ass ever since and prospering for it. I've fallen into a pit of my own now. That job is a big part of what got me here. That was one of the worthwhile times. I feel good about that. Thanks for reminding me, and sorry for the therapeutic word vomit. The fact that humanity is getting another mini space race going on. I'd love to see a man set foot on Mars in my lifetime. That. And of course just getting to spend time with all my friends to play Dungeons and Dragons every week. I have my weekly D&D game tonight. It is the highlight of my week that I always look forward to roll for initiative. I have mine tonight also. I am just going to assume that you are a member of my party. I am reminded of Sam's speech to Frodo in Osgiliath in the Two Towers. It is like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you did not want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it is only a passing thing. This shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. And when the sun shines it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you. That meant something. Even if you were too small to understand why. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. Because they were holding on to something. That there is some good in this world, Mr. Frodo. And it is worth fighting for. I am going to nursing school and every time I hear about the advances in the medical field I get excited. Japan just approved a medicine that they claim can cure the flu in one day. The merging of medicine and technology is extremely fascinating. I saw a video of a prototype that was virtual scan of someone's body, inside and out. You could remove organs and see what was under them. If that can catch on, it will dramatically help surgeons plan for more successful outcomes. I have a neuropace in my brain to help control seizures. Responsive neurostimulation. I am on the first few steps of transhumanism and I wake up every day realizing that this cutting-edge technology in my skull will one day be the peg leg of neurological procedures. Press forth, my friend. Shared collaborative projects like Wikipedia proving that people are inherently good. Wikipedia, you are welcome, college students. Just remember to use the sources given in the Wikipedia page, not Wiki itself as your reference. People are beginning to realize that things do not change on their own. More people are taking action to help out and change the world as a whole. Just sat through a domestic abuse violence seminar this morning. I can certainly appreciate that we as world people can see an issue and raise the red flag and wave it vigorously. No more of this, well, that is just the way it is business. Rape, abuse whether child or partner, racism, discrimination, etc. We are able to stand up and say, heck no, poop ain't happening on my watch. There is help out there. Your EB problem. Get fixed. There are so many avenues now that are there to help any problem you may be having. Use it. Everyone has problems. That is the only thing that stays the same. It is important that we recognize this and put aside our pride and get help. And that is what makes me have hope for the future, for humanity. The increasing easiness of traveling anywhere in the world. It is easier than ever before in the history of the world, and it will continue to get easier. And yet my commute still takes 90 minutes in Friday rush hour traffic. Self-driving cars cannot come fast enough. There is still people like you that donate like half of their money every year, or whatever. Holy poop, I did not realize Bill Gates was the OP until I saw your comment. Reruns of Bob Ross and Mr. Rogers. Got drunk one night and watched some Bob Ross on Netflix and it was a revelation. Man, it is impossible to feel bad when you are watching him paint. So much joy. I guess that is why they called it the joy of painting. Happy little trees. That every day millions of people go to work in order to provide for their families, come home, talk about inane things, etc. The world over consists mostly of people with similar wants and similar needs, no matter from where they hail or what they look like. And the vast majority of the time it just works. One tiny lapse in coordination and it could all come crumbling down. But mostly the world marches on. It is a brilliant blue ball of common humanity. And it pays to remember sometimes that for all that is horrible in the world, we are surrounded by a lot of good. Agreed. I just wish this were more reflected on a geopolitical scale. If nation-states spent more money on cooperation instead of invasion of each other, so much good could come from it. I did say we're experiencing an age where the vast majority of nations do just that. Sure, what is happening in Syria is terrible, and there are several other nations in some of the poorest, least connected parts of the world that operate on a similar level, but on the whole, war and invasion are becoming obsolete as all the nations of the world who are connected both through trade, technology and culture find it incomprehensible to invade one another. Sure, bad actors like Russia try and circumvent it through dog and pony shows like what they did in Georgia and Ukraine. And China challenges other nations' autonomy by invading the ocean. But on the whole, since the Second World War and especially the fall of the Soviet Union, more and more countries are spending money on cooperation. And most of the money spent on the military by these nations is meant for defense of this new world, not invasion. So thinking of it like that makes me optimistic about the future. Sure, it could all go wrong just like it did in 1914, but I believe that on a deeper fundamental level we're all more connected, and it's those countries that refuse to join this new world that cause the conflict, not the great powers anymore. Hi Bill. I think we are making great progress with renewable energy, and I'm hopeful that my children's generation will have a chance to fix the mess we made. As someone with mental health issues, I love that the field is getting more attention and there is becoming less of a stigma of having a mental illness. A relative of mine checked into a mental hospital yesterday for depression and bipolar disorder. The amount of support he received from friends and family was very encouraging. I checked into a mental hospital last year for depression and anxiety. The amount of support from the doctors, therapists and staff was wonderful. My psychiatric help get me on the right medication and made me realize it is okay to ask for help. I was so scared to go, but I'm so thankful I did. The plummeting price of solar and wind energy. Absolute upvote. In Australia there has been incredible penetration of solar power in the last 10 years. All driven by the economics of solar power. In the last 10 years. Well, 2018 is even better than the last 10 years in terms of prices. Payoff periods and sales of solar panels have reflected that. People are installing their panels en masse with zero subsidies. Businesses big and small, covering their roofs. It is so crazy. There may be a glut of power in SAR in as few as 5 years' time. Considering the rate of growth. On one Sunday, a few months ago, 50% of all power in SAR was generated by rooftop solar alone. That is not even including wind and other large-scale renewables. We don't have hydro in SAR. The magic of all this is that it only took a few years of government investment. The market has ramped up. Partly in thanks to those subsidies, we are reaping benefits, and we will be for years to come.